Okay, apologize everyone for our delay. We're going to discuss a different part of the book than we had in the past. Um, we had some technical issues, and as a result, it was took a little while. I'm still getting used to this medium, but I figure with this medium, we with so many people use it, so it's just a matter of getting used to how to start a scheduled video. Let's get started. Okay, first thing is I want to welcome everyone to our weekly class. We are currently learning Kabbalah Overview. That's in Avinoam Fraenkel's translation and commentary to Shomer Emunim. Some correspondence with Avinoam Fraenkel. He explained that he felt that for our generation, this is the more important part of the book. So therefore, we have been studying this for, let's say, what would you say, Russ, about a year or two?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, all right. So we are in the middle. Now, I just want to share with everybody that following the Jewish holiday season, we will be transitioning to my book, Seamless Oneness. But this time, till that point, we're going to be continuing with Avinoam Fraenkel's book. So we did a lot on the Partsufim, and it's we did the Sfirot, the Partsufim, and now I would like to go to a section of a book called Hashgacha. So I will take you to that place. Okay, so let us go to page 820, and we'll start from over there. I just want to share with everybody that it's always important to give tzedakah, and whatever organization you give to, whatever you give to, that is beautiful. Whatever humanitarian cause, whatever cause to promote Torah, to promote the spiritual level of the universe is very important. I just want to show you something really cute. I have a Pushka app on my phone, Chabad.org. I don't know if you could see it. It's a Pushka app, and it's a really convenient way of giving. This is one of the oldest soup kitchens in the land of Israel. It's there from the years from the 1790s, 1780s, 1790s. It was established by the first Rebbe of Lubavitch movement. So I'm going to put a little bit into it now, and let us begin our class. Again, I want to thank everyone for your patience while I was navigating our technical difficulties. Okay, so page 820, Hashgacha. Hashgacha literally means divine supervision, like how God supervises the world. This chapter aims to provide an in-depth insight to several topics discussed in Shomer Emunim that have sparked much historic debate among rabbis and the Kabbalists. It is hoped that the discussion around these topics will clarify them and will also help sharpen the understanding of the material presented in previous chapters of this overview. Okay. Reconciliation of different historic understandings of Hashgacha. Again, Hashgacha literally means overview. God, how God, supervises His world. However, I think more directly it translates into English as theology. No, it's the theology of Judaism, Hashgacha, So Rav Ergas closes his monumental Shomer Emunim with a lengthy exposition on the concepts of Hashgacha, divine providence. While he generally ascribes his sources for this as being the earlier Kabbalistic works. He specifically mentions Moshe Cordovero's Sefer Elima, which by the way is a very hard work. I tried learning it, as his primary source. Indeed, Rav Erga's presentation of this topic consists of explanatory extracts that are copied virtually in their entirety from Sefer Elima. In addition, they are arranged according to categories of divine providence, also provided by Rabbi Cordovero in his earlier work, Shiur Koma. Any query that may be raised by Rav Ergis's position is therefore simultaneously a query of Rav Moshe Cordovero's position. I want to share with you, just as a side point, some of you may know, some of you may have facility with the work called Tomer Devora, a little short work by Rav Moshe Cordovero describing how the 13 attributes of compassion are reflected in the human being. Anyways, that little book is at the end of Sefer Elima. It's excerpted from Sefer Elima. This exposition opens by setting the context with a sweeping general statement that, first of all, you need to know that there's no act, small or large, that is happenstance without divine providence. Rav Ergis, then quoting Sefer Elima, explains that this is because the infinite one is that which continuously creates everything and gives life to everything. There is nothing outside of him. There is no creation that exists without his power, which is applied to his intention and will, and not applied through happenstance or through being forced. In other words, there's no coincidence. Everything is supervised by God, conducted by God, created by God, maintained by God, and God is involved with everything. There's no such a thing as blind forces of nature making things happen on their own. It's God who's conducting nature, makes what happens occur. The exposition continues to explain that the domain of divine providence is bounded by Zeir Anpin and Nukva of Atzilut. Okay, we went through in previous classes long discussion about it, but basically for our purposes, it's briefly cosmic male and female. In other words, and the cosmic male is in this case is the is part of the world of Atzilut, the world of emanations, and the cosmic female is that aspect of the world of emanations that leads into the worlds of creations. So it's really at the switch between what's emanated and what's created. And we've just explained beforehand the difference between an emanation and a creation. An emanation is like an appendage to your body. It feels connected to the source. A creation is something that feels is more like a separate, independent being that feels separate from the source. I see we have some comments over here. Okay, so yes, so let's see, Cynthia, would it be the Shekhinah that does the caretaking of the world? The Shekhinah is what he's referring to over here as Nukva Vatzilut. It's the divine feminine that extends into the worlds of creations. So we have two kinds of realities that emerge from God. You have, so to speak, you have emanations and you have creations. The flow of divine light has to pass from the levels of emanations into the levels of creations in order for us to have a physical universe. Otherwise, it's like the light bulb without electricity reaching it, and so the light bulb goes dark. So this universe would go dark if it weren't a flow of divine electricity running through. And one of the main switch points is the transition between what's emanated and what's created. So up here you have what's emanated, and that's a switch, and then there has to be a switch to connect to worlds of creation to flow further downward to get to the bottom where we are, the bottom feeder of all the worlds. And the Shekhinah, that is Nukva of Atzilut, that is the divine feminine that transitions the light from the realms of emanations to the realms of creations. But nevertheless, accentuates that application of divine providence is solely in the arena where changes take place, meaning in the vessels, which again is Nukva Malchut, meaning the level of the creations. Therefore, everything within Malchut, which Ezra of Ergas points out, encompasses the entirety of our natural world around us, is not simply under the jurisdiction of some form of remote, all-encompassing divine providence. Rather, divine providence is the very existence of Malchut itself and its manifestation of the infinite within the inner essence of everything that exists in Malchut. In other words, what he's saying here, to unpack it, is it's not simply that we have a, that we happen to have a, all-encompassing divine providence that's unrelated. It's very general. It's kind of remote. It's kind of like what some philosophers believed, what some scientists believe, that there's a God that makes everything, but the lowly world is too low for him to touch. It's icky. It's got nothing to do with his pristine reality. That's not what we believe. We believe that God is involved in all the details of the world, even what seems ugly, even what seems unseemly. And therefore, the way he created everything and the way he made a system of lights to come down is that it should be involved with every detail. So Malchut is so Malchut of Atzilut, the Shekhinah. This is where this is the divine emanation that takes the dip into the lower worlds and is the encompassing bedrock of the lower worlds, with deep concern for deep concern for every detail. I remember walking to synagogue, yesterday and looking at the mountains in front of me. I see beautiful mountains in front of me, and when you see them, and filled with green, lush trees, and I'm thinking to myself, how many leaves are on those trees? How many leaves are on those trees? I mean, endless, endless. And yet God knows it all. I can't fathom the number of leaves that are on those trees. And yet God knows it and cares for each and every leaf. And not only that, our earth is a speck of dust in the physical universe. And every detail of the physical universe is known by God. And then we go to the spiritual universes, we go on and on. We have no clue of what it is we don't even know of. Our knowledge base is minuscule, but yet God knows all of this and cares about it with individual providence. I mean, it brings me to tears to think about it. Up to this point, Rav Erga's position appears to be simple and clear-cut. Absolutely everything that exists is subject to total, uncompromised divine providence for the specific reason that the Ein Sof, the Infinite One, is the underlying reality of everything that exists. However, Rav Ergas continues to introduce details of 10 types of divine providence. For example, Rav Ergas explains that the nature of some categories of existence, such as plant life and the inanimate nature, are only subject to divine providence governing each separate entire species as a group, and not to individual creations within that group. Right, okay. This is not the view of everybody. This is a setup in a sense. Yeah, Oran, we skip to Hashgacha because we're only going to be learning this for another month or two at most at this moment. So I figured let's go to the next step. So it's page 820. 820, okay. Actually, now we're on 821, but that's where it begins.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. In stark contrast, he continues to explain that humans are each individually subject to specific divine providence over every minute action and experience. Even more confusingly, he continues to explain that even humans lose their specific divine providence when they are part of a group of humans, where the application of divine providence over the group will outweigh that which would be applied to the individual human. Following the details of these 10 types of providence, Rav Ergas then concludes his exposition stating that everything is dependent on the actions of human beings, and that according to his or her distance or closeness to God, God's divine providence will correspondingly be with that person. Okay, so Rav Ergas seems to say that there are lesser entities that only have a species level divine providence, but not an individual. No, individuals in the species don't have divine providence. This is, by the way, in stark contrast to the Baal Shem Tov, who held that even a leaf has divine providence. As much divine providence as everything else. I'm in favor of the Baal Shem Tov's approach. I'm a follower of the Baal Shem Tov's approach in this area. I believe, as the Baal Shem Tov teaches, that every detail of the universe has divine providence. But let's see how this plays out over here.
I was saying that your thought that you had on the way to shul yesterday that you described follows the Baal Shem Tov.
Right, my thought I had on the way to shul exactly follows the Baal Shem Tov. Right, that it knows every leaf on this tree, on these trees. There are thousands of trees or more in front of me on this mountain that I'm facing, and each tree itself has thousands of leaves, and yet God knows, controls, and decides what happens with each and every leaf, and each and every molecule within each every leaf. This is what I believe. I believe as the Baal Shem Tov says it.
And the other opinion is, I think, they base it on some verse from the prophet about the fish, that the fish somehow doesn't have ashgacha.
It doesn't have the individual fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly which one, but yeah.
Okay, let's see how it plays out. I actually have not deeply learned the other point of view, because honestly, it's simpler to say, okay, everything is divinely controlled.
Yeah. I also like the Baal Shem Tov. But everything is under Shgacha. Yeah.
Okay, let me just take a look at some of the comments. Okay, so Alan Kaufman. So Nukva of Malchut is not a emanation, just a transition point. No, Nukva is part of the emanations, but it's the aspect of the emanations that extends down into creation. So its main home base really is the world of emanations, but it dips down into the worlds of creations, as it says. The Kabbalist comment on the verse "Titain terv levesa." And she awakes from the last chapter of Proverbs, and she awakes at nighttime and gives food to her household, and the Kabbalists explain that that's a reference to the Shekhinah coming down the worlds at nighttime. She comes down in the first half at night to the lower worlds. So her home base is the world of emanations, but she's able to come down into the worlds of creations and elevate sparks from there, and to feed the lower levels. It's a whole discussion. She herself is the transition point that partakes of both, that has both sides to her.
This whole concept of Hashkafa also reminds me of why in the Friday night Kiddush do we mention that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim?
Right.
Or what does that have to do with Shabbos? So Shabbos more has to do with creation, seventh day of creation. And it's actually to remind us that God didn't just create the world and go away. He's involved with us every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So so now Shalom. If God creates everything and God created caring, then God surely has the capacity to care. Since God knew caring so well, she created it. True, obviously God's sense of caring is well beyond ours. We only get our sense of caring from God, and even that is like a tiny thing. We cannot love even ourselves as much as God loves us. God, we're not capable of loving ourselves nearly to the extent that God loves us. Okay.
Look, the verse I mentioned is from Habakkuk.
Yeah. So how does the verse read out?
It says, it looks like the introduction is that the prophet is telling Hashem that ותעשה אדם כדגי הים, כרמס לא מושל בו. Like basically people like without ashgacha, I guess in time of.
So what side is it supporting? what side is that verse in Habakkuk supporting?
I think it's the support that Hashem made the Bnei Adam now he was angry at them, so he doesn't have ashgacha on them.
Okay,
so he
made him like the fish because he was upset with them, and so he removed his divine providence, so to speak, from them. I want to share something. There might be like a middle ground between the views, and that is there's revealed divine providence and concealed divine providence. At least on the concealed level, I believe there is divine providence over every detail. But on the revealed level, it's only more noticeable in beings that have higher consciousness. Mm-hmm. There's I think it's in Sanhedrin. There's a teaching in Tractate Sanhedrin which says that when it comes to slaughtering an animal, even then the heavenly court convenes whether to do it. In other words, there's concern. Whether this animal should be slaughtered for meat or not, and so there is some sort of divine providence. I think as you go up the consciousness, the tree of consciousness, higher consciousness, there's more revealed divine providence. We see it. Bigger tzaddikim have more open divine providence than commoners more often. So I think this might be more a discussion of whether it's open or concealed rather than
Mm.
whether it's in other words, on the revealed level, maybe
Yeah.
when it comes to
Right.
plants, the species
Yeah.
wide level, this
Yeah.
species level divine providence. On the concealed level, is for each and every creature.
Yeah. Fair.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I think that might be going on. It's like I noticed, like when I was in Israel, there's more open, revealed divine providence. It's a place of higher consciousness. So I think it might be that where you have higher consciousness, you have more revealed divine providence.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just suggesting,
Good suggestion. I think. Yeah.
but let's see. Let's take it further. What he says.
Okay.
At face value, it appears that Rav Ergas and therefore Rabbi Cordovero's position on divine providence are totally self-contradictory. Either divine providence is absolute and applies to every minute detail of existence, or it is variable and applies to varying degrees to different groups of creation, and also acts in response to human action. Right? So that's why it'd be interesting. Rav Ergas is mostly quoting Rav Moshe Cordovero. Why would he be? Why on the surface, it appear like he's arguing with him? Surely both the absolute and variable positions that Rav Ergas presents side by side cannot be simultaneously true. Moreover, historically, many great rabbis have understood to be a proponent of either the absolute approach or some variant of the variable approach. The difference between the absolute and variable approaches in general are seen by many to be a major philosophical difference of the outlook between these rabbis. Intriguingly, however, even though many rabbis only supported one approach, nevertheless, when investigating further, it is significant that a subset of perhaps the most famous of these rabbis, who were commonly understood to hold one position, also upheld the other. So it would seem like there's some sort of internal self-contradiction going on. Okay. Then there are footnotes that take up the next 2 pages. So we're going to the next 3 pages. So let's go to page 825. Against this backdrop, there is a seminal teaching from the Arizal that demonstrates that he upholds both the absolute position and the variant and variable position. In doing so, he provides insight that goes at least some of the way to explain how these two approaches can simultaneously coexist. He explains that there is a minimum required level of divine providence that is given to create everything that exists and ensure that it all remains in continued existence, supporting the absolute approach. However, there's also separate, simultaneous, variable level divine providence that is dependent upon human behavior. So what the Arizal is saying is that there is an approach that depends on our behavior. And then, I'm saying there's like a basic level of divine providence, subsistence level that keeps everything going. And then on top of that, there is a level that depends on our actions. It's kind of thinking of it this way. In order for human life to exist, you have necessities, and then on top of necessities, you have luxuries. So there's a level of divine providence that provides the necessities for existence, and then there's a level that adds the luxuries depending on how humans behave. That's what it seems. So let's see what the Arizal says. I'm going to try to substitute many of these Hebrew words with their English translations. But well, actually, he does put in the English translation. Well, let's give it a shot. Okay. Know that there is no doubt that there's always the case of divine providence and bestowal of the emanator within creations, within the creations, does not cease even momentarily. So in other words, there's always a flow coming down that does not cease even momentarily. This is even if there is a blemish in the lower worlds because of human sin, as when the supernal lights turn their face away from the lower worlds, and they remove themselves from the lower worlds and ascend. Nevertheless, divine providence and the supernal enlightenment that must be given to the lower worlds to adequately maintain them never ceases, as is written in the verse, for even when he is momentarily angry, he still wills life. It is certain that at the time of the removal of the lights that ascend, this illumination, this enlightenment that extends from the emanator to give life to the lower worlds, is not comparable to the separate level of illuminated enlightenment that extends to give life to the lower worlds when the supernal lights descend from above. So he's saying that even when the lights lift, as it says, let's say when Adam sinned, the famous midrash in Shir Hashirim on the verse, Basi Legani Achaisi Kalai, I entered my bridal chamber, my sister, my bride. And even when, and the midrash mentions there that the Shekhinah ascended up when Adam had sinned, and then ascended further up when the following generations had sinned. With each generation, the light ascended further up, and then so even then, there's a subsistence level in order to keep the world going. The subsistence level does not indicate divine approval. The subsistence level indicates that God just is trying to keep things from, falling apart so that there's hope for later. So some later generation will pick up the slack and make a better make a better do of it.
Whoever created life has to sustain it. I guess to the bare minimum or something.
Right. However, that's now. But when the lights descend, as it's the same midrash continues, it talks about
up or down.
Descends. The light comes down. The same midrash says that the 7 tzaddikim came and they brought the light successively down, level by level by level. The Shekhinah successively down. So that's what he's referring to.
This is how we are able to receive the Torah at that time.
Right, exactly. Light came down to the point that we could receive the Torah at Mount Sinai.
So then why in the last sentence I read, it talks about lights ascending?
Well, ascending means that they're pulling away. They're withdrawing. Have you ever watched what's it called? How do they know that the universe is expanding? They know it from the Doppler shift, right? What do they see in the Doppler shift? They see the stars are colored red. Red is the lowest vibration of light that's visible to human beings, right? A star coming close to us, moving toward us, would give a blue light and have a blue hue. But a star moving away from us would have a red shift, a red hue. They see that most of the stars are colored red.
So
they're moving away, which means that why would they all together be moving away? Because the universe is expanding. That's how they first got the thought that the universe is expanding. Of course, the Torah tells us that. I mean,
Really?
Yeah. It says that Hashem had to yell at the universe. It was kept expanding and expanding. It says Rashi mentions it
Really?
in the story of creation.
Oh.
Kept expanding, expanding. God had to yell at it to stop.
Interesting.
So I guess even when it stopped, it probably, it's still in the process of stopping. So it's, slow expansion. It's not a fast expansion. God's words are forever, so it's forever stopping. So anyways, getting back to this, okay. So so when the lights, so the Doppler shift indicates lights moving away. So when something moving away gives off a lower energy, when something's moving toward you, it gives off a higher energy. This has nothing to do with how close or distant it is from you. This just has to do by which direction it's going. It's the direction that determines the kind of energy it's giving off relative to you. For example, compare the sound of a car coming toward you, but at this moment 30 feet away from you, and the sound of a car moving away from you, but at this point 30 feet away from you. At this moment, both cars are 30 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
But the sound of the car moving toward you is going to be louder than the sound of the car moving away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of the distance. This scenario is the same, but it's because of the direction.
The Doppler.
Those are examples of the Doppler effect. So when spiritual lights move away from us, we still get them, but we get them at their weakest, at the weakest possible level, And when they move toward us, so when lights are ascending, meaning withdrawing, they give off a weaker effect. When they're descending, they give off a stronger effect.
Mm-hmm.
So far clear?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's what the Arizal is saying. When the lights are moving away, the universe, the physical universe exists.
How does it relate to the Ashgacha? Basically.
So God's divine providence is a kind of spiritual light.
Mm-hmm.
His providence is a kind of light.
I see.
We tend to think of light because we see physical light. It's like this. It seems to us about as alive as a rock is, right? But the truth of the matter is that spiritual lights are filled with consciousness. So God's divine providence is a light.
So if he ascending, means the Ashgacha is less.
Right.
You can less feel the Ashgacha.
Right. You feel his divine providence. Again, this comes back to us talking about revealed divine providence and concealed divine providence.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it less. It's more. It's more concealed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When his divine providence is when his light is coming down, in other words, his divine providence is more fully concentrated,
Mm-hmm.
And we feel his divine providence more.
Mm-hmm. It could be because Midat HaRachamim in some sense.
Well, that's part of the same equation.
If we are close and we sin, will be the immediate result.
Right. So again, that is part of the same equation.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, bottom of 825. Okay, I don't see any new comments, so we'll just go to the bottom of 825. To relate to this teaching from the Arizal, it's important to appreciate that terms used as bestowal and enlightenment and divine providence are all essentially referring to the same thing. meaning to the level of manifestation of the infinite light in the worlds within the environment of the sphere of Malchut. This manifestation provides the basic existence of absolutely everything that is contained within a world created within the Malchut environment. So, as we saw earlier, this basic existence is created by applying a level of what he refers to as shefa and ha'ara, again, abundance and enlightenment, through the linear svirot, the spirit of the level of illumination of the igulim, the reshimu nefesh. Okay, let me read it the way he says it, and then I'll explain. I'll start again from the beginning of the sentence. Am I trying to it's too dense for me to translate and get the flow that he means, convey the flow that he means. Okay, as we saw earlier, this basic existence created by applying the level of shefa ha'ora via yosher ruach to the level of shefa ha'ora of the igulim reshimu nefesh, which are the underlying components, elements of that world. So basically, what he's saying is that the basic existence is created by applying level of flow through the linear sphirot to the flow of the spherical sphirot, that are the underlying components of that world. So, but I think this is going to get very technical, and maybe too technical to unpack in the briefly. So let's go skip down the page to from the Arizal's teachings. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
The same page, 826, but we're going to skip down there. Okay, from the Arizal's, I could read the technicality, but to unpack it would probably be a class of its own, and much of it we have gone through in the past.
Okay.
From the Arizal's teaching, we can understand the following key points about divine providence. We can also define terms that will be useful in our subsequent discussion. There are two distinct levels of divine providence. The first level is absolute and causes everything in existence to continuously exist. We call this general divine providence, or in Hebrew, hashgacha klalit, that constantly causes the existence of everything that exists, and it's in its minutest detail within Malchut Nukva, within the environment of Malchut, because as much as Malchut dips into the lower world, that's one aspect of her. Another aspect of her is that she's the environment of the lower worlds. She's the wider framework in which the lower worlds exist, depending on how you're looking at it. The second level is variable and is modulated in proportion to the actions of humans and mankind. We call this specific divine providence, hashgacha pratit, which comes in addition as an additional bestowal to be manifest within Malchut and Nukva. So that's the basic digest version of what Arizal is getting at for the purposes of our discussion. Okay. Do you guys have your Talmud class?
Mm-hmm.
You do? Okay. So we will put the bookmark over here. We'll put the bookmark here. Thank you. Put a bookmark. Page 827. I want to thank everybody for joining. I am, by the way, of the personal opinion that there is divine providence on every detail of reality, as the Baal Shem Tov says, and it's just that as you have higher consciousness, that divine providence becomes more revealed in the settings of higher consciousness and is less revealed in settings of lower consciousness. So that's why a human generally has more divine providence than, let's say, a fish. A fish probably would have more revealed divine. I mean, again, the human has more revealed divine providence, let's say, than a fish, as you quote from the verse in the Habakkuk. A fish would probably have more revealed divine providence than, let's say, a stone.
Right.
So as you go up, a person who's truly saintly, a tzaddik, would have more revealed divine providence than, let's say, a commoner.
Yeah.
People will who are in the Holy Land, the land of Israel, will see more divine, open divine providence than people, let's say, living outside the land of Israel. Again, it's a question of degree of revelation. It's not a question of existence. I believe that on the real level, there's equal divine providence. On the hidden level, there's totally equal divine providence, and on every detail of reality. Okay, with this, I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom Varach. Now that Shabbat Nachamu is behind us, we can take the lessons that we had learned during the ninth of Av and now bring it into a happier state and enter into a happier state and enjoy. Okay, Shavua Tov Varach. Take care.
Welcome.
That's just a picture of it. It's not the real.
Okay, we are live.